All right, when I was last single and dating, girls were trying to get guys to watch The Notebook. Only 5 Harry Potter books had been written. The iPhone didn't exist. Blockbuster Video was killing it. And to be on Facebook, you needed a .edu email address. That's how they started. The most popular songs were by Usher, Outkast, and Hoobastank. Nickelback was somehow relevant. And country music was the same. Nothing has changed in country music in 14 years. I worked at a bank briefly right after I graduated where they always had country music playing, and you turn it on today and I still know the songs from that stint. So then, Brad, why are you giving the message on dating? Well, sometimes you perform so well in one given area. You can ride that accomplishment for years. Yes, decades even. But since my advice may be a little stale, I have talked to the increasingly high number of people in my family who are dating. We have heard from Zane, who has had the same girlfriend since 2nd grade. He's going on 2 years in elementary school. Is he really dating? Well, maybe they don't literally go on dates, but they do play soccer at recess, so that's something. Then there's Layla, who has a mutual crush who recently asked to be her Valentine, as she told you, which was completely uncalled for. Daddy is supposed to be her Valentine until at least her mid-40s. I've also been watching some dating-type movies and TV shows to get ready for this. One of them seemingly came to me by the hand of God, fate, or a near impossible misclick on Amazon. Yes, I'm referring to the still mysterious Destination Wedding. For those of you who weren't here 2 weeks ago, I will catch you up. This arrived at my door from Amazon about 2.5 weeks ago with the pictured gift note saying, "Thank you." I had never heard of this movie and had no idea where it came from. Option 1, which I was near certain was true at first, was that my kids went on Amazon, clicked something, and it arrived at my door. But I went and checked my orders and it wasn't there and I hadn't been charged, thank goodness, because the movie's terrible. Since that time, we've been trying to figure out where it came from. You know, kind of its superhero origin story. We sent a thank you note to the sender, mysteriously called Sissy, asking if perhaps it was sent by mistake, but there has been no response. I'm not even sure how you would respond to an Amazon thank you note, but I assume it's possible. It seems to me like this was probably a mistake, but somehow they got my name and relatively new address correct. So if it's a mistake, it's weird, it's creepy, and I assume my identity has been stolen and my account's drained. We also considered that maybe someone in our life was giving us a message about an upcoming destination wedding. But we checked with all of the likely people who might be doing this and came up empty. And really, this sort of thing doesn't work if you keep quiet about it. No one's going to come to the destination wedding that you don't ever really communicate. We also considered that there could have been content within the movie that was somehow meant for us. So we ventured into dangerous territory, and we watched the movie. Well, we watched it over 3 nights because we kept falling asleep. It's bad. There's long stretches of dialogue with almost nothing going on, and not the type of dialogue that can carry a scene, much less a movie. It's a romantic movie where you don't want the people to get together. I found myself rooting against both of the main characters. I not only didn't want them to get together, I wouldn't have wished them on anyone off screen either. If someone was trying to communicate to us through the content of this movie, I didn't get it. All that was achieved is that I think I like The Matrix less now, and we'll have to see if I can watch another season of Stranger Things. The last possibility, which is still my favorite, is that someone awesome sent this to me, knowing exactly what I would do with it, which is this. Go crazy trying to figure out where it came from and rant about how terrible the movie is in front of a group of people. If someone out there is indeed this awesome, then I tip my cap to you, sissy. And if you stole my identity, at least you did it with style. And as I mentioned earlier, while I was watching this movie, I didn't want them to get together, or for either one of them to end up with any other poor, unsuspecting soul. If I try to make something significant out of this movie, it would be that these two getting together, and I want to emphasize again, The two most unready for a relationship people I can ever think of. It could be seen as an analogy of how God loves us despite our many, many flaws. And really, this is what we're talking about this morning. How does the love shown in dating relationships reflect God's love? And how can we show that same love and character to others in how we approach dating and relationships? So regardless of where you are in life, if you're single and interested in learning about dating, there will be something for you in this. If you're married like me, there is a lot to learn about how this aspect and season of love reflects God's love, how he pursues relationship with us, how he fulfills the longings of our hearts. And it's probably good to spark some of that dating excitement and passion, you old married people like me. All right, let's start. You know where things start, with the pursuit. Perhaps you've grown to fancy someone, seen them at the typical meetup spots, the gym, the produce section of the supermarket, dog parks, class, the library, or the DR water table. Perhaps it's someone you've grown to know a bit and you would like this thing to progress to at least a date, possibly even to marriage, 5 kids, and 16 grandkids. What do you do? How do you pursue this future you're hoping for? And what about the chance of rejection? It's real, it's possible, it may even be likely. All right, for practical advice, I'll give you what I think is just good advice. Then we're going to go to college-age Brad, which was the last time I was single, for what I actually did in these situations. On the good advice side, for guys or anyone wanting to take a relationship to a more serious place, I would say don't worry so much about being rejected. I know that's easier said than done, but if there's someone you're interested in, let them know about it. Ask her out, ask him out. Even ask her out more than once if she says no. If you're really into a girl, pursue her, and do not listen to your fear of being rejected. Absolutely respect anyone and back off if you get a hard no or a never. But do not miss out because you didn't try or didn't make your intentions clear. Be strong and courageous. That's in the Bible. Not really relating to this, but it's in there. And for some context on this one, and while this is not explicit dating advice from the Bible, this is an example from pastor and author Erwin McManus describing both his pursuit of his now wife and God's love for us. He says, I once met a girl named Kim, and I fell in love. I pursued her with my love and pursued her with my love until I felt my love had captured her heart. So I asked her to be my wife, and she did not say yes. I was unrelenting and asked her again, pursuing her with my love, and I pursued her with my love until she said yes. I did not send my brother, nor did I send a friend, for in issues of love you must go yourself. This is the story of Jesus, that God has walked among us, and he pursues us with his love. He is very familiar with rejection, but is undeterred. And he is here, even now, still pursuing you with his love. God coming to earth as a human in Jesus was an act of incredible love, courage, and reckless pursuit of us. If you are longing for someone to pursue you, showing a deep, relentless love, if you are looking for someone to pursue you with a relationship that they are willing to die for, what you're looking for is what God has already done for you. Erwin told this story in response to a group of Muslims he was speaking to, asking the meaning behind the coming of Jesus, about why God had to come to earth himself. And he said about this act and the story he told about his wife, that this, from my vantage point, was the story of God. It is a love story. And this is consistent with what we read in the Bible. In John 3:16, it says, for this is how God loved the world. He gave his one and only son, so that everyone who believes in him will not perish, but have eternal life. And it says, so the Word became human and made his home among us. He was full of unfailing love and faithfulness, and we have seen his glory, the glory of the Father's one and only Son. Jesus is both the reflection of how much God loves and pursues us, but also the greatest example and embodiment of love that we have. So we have on the good advice side to pursue, to be strong and courageous, be like Erwin, be like God. This is mostly applied to guys, at least the way I originally wrote it, although I don't think there's anything wrong with a girl pursuing and initiating. Like Layla, she went up and asked her crush to be her Valentine. It's very brave. All right, now on to college-age Brad and his advice on pursuit. Note, this is probably less good advice in general, but there is sometimes some good practical application. Here's the advice, and that is to feel out the situation first. Look for situations to spend time with this person that you would like, that you're interested in. Group situations, things you know they'll be at, etc. And flirt a little bit. I don't think I ever just asked a girl out without a pretty good idea that I was going to get a yes based on clear mutual interest. So for girls, all this advice works for you too. You can pursue, but if you're looking for the guy to initiate, it certainly helps to give him some indications that you would welcome him pursuing you romantically. So flirt a little bit. Not every guy has the raw guts to ask a girl out just totally cold. This is why we have flirting. It's how we let people know about our interests without awkward conversations defining a non-existent relationship. And if you want more practical advice on flirting, I will refer you to college-age Lacey. There's current-day Lacey. She can surely remember. And college-age Brad, follow-up question. What do you do if someone is flirting with you, clearly likes you, but you don't like them back? Well, assuming that the flirting is tolerable, you just play dumb. Now, this is neither being strong nor courageous. Quite the opposite, actually. Would it be better to let them know you're not interested so they can focus their efforts elsewhere? Of course. But that's like breaking up with someone you never really dated. That sounds awful. I wasn't into doing that stuff when I was in college. Thanks, college-age Brad. We'll be back later for more gems. All right, the next part of dating that I want to get into is what makes it uncomfortable and awkward. The constant evaluation of one another and deciding if you're up for another date, for being exclusive, for ultimately getting engaged and married. Even then, possibly 5 kids and 16 grandkids. I want to start by referring everyone back to last week. Last week, we talked about how to show God's love in our lives by doing singleness well. One of the most important places to be in order to do the evaluation and choosing part of dating well is to be content in singleness. Now, I don't mean that you need to choose singleness for your entire life or even ultimately want that for your life. If that's the case, then really you just shouldn't be dating because that tends to lead to not being single. What I mean is that you can't see singleness as an awful outcome to be avoided at all costs. You can absolutely live a full and fulfilled life as a single person. And the reason this is so important when you're evaluating your relationships and potential mates is that the fear of being alone or being single forever can lead to terrible decisions. Things like staying in abusive, unhealthy relationships, marrying a person you don't love but you feel like you need for companionship. It can lead to cheating. If you're really just worried about not being alone and someone better comes along, then why not jump ship? It is bad, bad, bad to see singleness as something to be feared and avoided. And the verse that I think illustrates this best is one Megan shared last week from Philippians. It says, "Not that I was ever in need, for I have learned how to be content with whatever I have. I know now how to live on almost nothing or with everything. I have learned the secret of living in every situation, whether it is with a full stomach or empty, with plenty or little, for I can do everything through Christ who gives me strength." Now, nowhere in here does Paul say that he prefers hunger, much like it's okay to want to be married or to want to stay single. But we need to learn to be ultimately content in God, whether we're single, dating, married, divorced, or widowed. All right, now on to what to look for in someone to date and eventually marry. I'm going to start with what should be the most obvious thing, but sometimes Christians are weird and think that this doesn't matter. You need to look for someone you're attracted to. If it's someone you aren't attracted to, that is a friend. I would even say it needs to be actual physical attraction. Now, it's fine if the physical attraction grows through getting to know them or something similar, but if you're looking for someone to be married to, it sure is better if you're attracted to them. I think this is biblical too, not as a commandment, but in reading through the Song of Solomon, the two lovers spend like half the book on physical descriptions of one another. For example, from the young man, he says, "You are beautiful, my darling, beautiful beyond words. Your eyes are like doves. Your teeth are as white as sheep, recently shorn and freshly washed. Your lips like scarlet ribbon. Your mouth is inviting. Your breasts are like two fawns. twin fawns of a gazelle grazing among the lilies. That part sounds like it's dirty, but it's so weird. If you try, anyway. And then from the young woman, my lover is dark and dazzling, better than 10,000 others. His eyes sparkle like doves beside springs of water. His arms are like rounded bars of gold set with beryl. His mouth is sweetness itself. He is desirable in every way. I think Becky and Josh just kind of, she leaned over and kissed him right at the end of that. I didn't intend to get anything started, but. All right, I'm going to move on soon to talk about deeper qualities to look for in a spouse or partner. And we'll make the point that just physical attraction isn't enough, and that just picking the most attractive person you can find is a bad plan, but you should be attracted to the person. Let's not go overboard. All right, the harder part. What are the qualities I should look for or look out for in someone I'm dating? And I think we all kind of have a list in our own heads, right? Even if some of them are just what we consider our type or our preference. We may want someone who is tall, dark, and handsome, or fit, kind, funny, and social. Someone who isn't too materialistic or isn't cheap. Someone who likes cats or someone who likes dogs. Someone who loves God, who is supportive, who will love us unconditionally. Someone who loves us despite our faults. Someone who will make us happy, who will complete us. Someone who will give our life purpose, who will make us a better person. Maybe we want someone who will be a good mother or father. Someone whose parents are at least tolerable. A lot of these things are very good things, and I will by no means tell you to abandon the things that you're looking for. But a lot of what we need to be evaluating about a person we're dating, other than obviously whether we like them and like spending time with them, is their character. And the Bible gives some good guidelines on this in Proverbs 31. This is a section of Proverbs called A Wife of Noble Character. But most of this would apply to guys too. It is not overly gender specific. Here's a portion of that passage. It says, "Who can find a virtuous and capable wife? She is more precious than rubies. She brings him good, not harm, all the days of her life. She goes to inspect a field and buys it. With her earnings, she plants a vineyard. She is energetic and strong, a hard worker. She extends a helping hand to the poor and opens her arms to the needy. She is clothed with strength and dignity, and she laughs without fear of the future. When she speaks, her words are wise, and she gives instructions with kindness. Charm is deceptive, and beauty does not last, but a woman who fears the Lord will be greatly praised." So I left out a lot of pieces there, but in shorthand, the pieces that I did read, what we're looking for is someone who brings good to their partner, is wise with money, is a hard worker, is generous, helpful to the needy, not fearful of the future, wise, kind, and fears the Lord. You may have noticed there's some overlap between what the kids said and what Proverbs said. And the last part is important. As much as I emphasize being attracted to your spouse or potential spouse or someone you're dating, most of the time spent with your spouse or even dating is talking and doing friend type stuff. You want a good partner, someone who will make life fun, good, and purposeful. This is someone you will end up becoming more and more like as you grow, because you will grow together with all the time you spend together. Look for someone who has a strong foundation in character and in sorts of things that are good. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on when to break things off. I'll just cover some quick basics. I would say break it off if you're clearly after different things, if you're feeling pressured sexually and they won't back off, if there's any hint of abuse, if the other person seems to bring out the worst parts of you, if dating is a huge grind, it really shouldn't be. It should be mostly fun. There's definitely hard parts, but it should not feel like you're fighting all the time. Or if several people in your life who you trust think the relationship is bad for you, especially if there's a consensus. Now, where I do want to spend a little more time is things that aren't reasons to break things off. Now, in a list that I shared earlier of things that we may look for in a spouse, I mentioned a few things that I think are somewhat common asks or expectations. One is someone who will love me unconditionally, someone who will complete me or make me feel whole, and someone who will give my life purpose and meaning. I threw these in there because while I think a good husband or wife can help with these things, really these are things that we long for because we're longing for God in our lives. It is not fair to anyone's current, future, or potential boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, or wife to be expected to fully fulfill these longings in our lives. For starters, on the first one, marriage and dating is generally by its nature conditional. We say vows at a wedding. I love you and we are exclusive, so this keeps things going as long as you're only with me and no one else. It's probably conditional on you not beating me up, or at least it should be. There are certainly things that can permanently end a relationship, like a marriage or a dating relationship. And it's not like that with him. The love is unconditional. We can say no to it, but forgiveness and grace are always available to us. It's also a problem if we're looking for this person to be the answer to every want and need in our lives. We're going to go with another quote from Erwin McManus for this one. He says, "This thing that haunts you, that never seems satisfied, the cravings in your soul that you are unable to satiate through all the success that the world can bring, this is your soul screaming for God." We were designed by God to have longings that can only be fulfilled by him. This is what Jesus was talking about when he said to the Samaritan woman at the well, "Anyone who drinks from this water will soon become thirsty again, but those who drink the water I give will never be thirsty again." It becomes a fresh bubbling spring within them, giving them eternal life. And this is what is written about in the Psalms, where it says, "As the deer longs for streams of water, so I long for you, O God. I thirst for God, the living God. When can I go and stand before him?" One of the biggest mistakes that we can make in our relationships and in evaluating someone we're dating is wanting them to fulfill every longing in our hearts, wanting them to be perfect, to make us whole, to give us a grand purpose. These things are our longings for God. A spouse is our partner, our companion, our love, a person whose faults we know well, but we love them anyway. They're our very favorite person on earth, but they're not God. And trying to make them God in our lives will not end well, and it's not fair to them. All right, it's time to get some advice from college-age Brad again. This time on evaluating a possible spouse. First, on the track of good advice that served me well back then, is pay attention to how a person treats people that they have no reason to treat well. People with lower status, people others find undesirable. This is a good indicator of a person's character. In these cases, it reflects the overall value that they give to a person just because they are a person. That one came from my dad. And it's good. I actually knew it when I was in college, and I told people that, and I still think it is awesome. The other one is less good, but the fruits of it continue to pay off. Find someone who cares about how they look, who works out, who dresses well, who has good skin somehow. This is a good indicator of someone who will age well and will look good for years to come. Likely effective advice from college-age Brad there, but with a clear ulterior motive. So not necessarily good advice. But this gets into one more point that I want to make on this topic. If you are looking for a certain type of person, say a wife or husband of noble character, you need to be the type of person that person would be attracted to. Similarly, if I'm looking for someone who cares about how they look and perhaps works out, maybe I should care about how I look and work out, because that's probably something that that person values. And if I want a wife or husband of noble character, I need to work on being that too. I should fear God, be generous, be hardworking, and wise with money. And this is another way where our dating is different than how we relate to and are loved by God. Other people will have specific things they're looking for in someone to date or marry. We may need to grow or mature to be in a place where we're ready to have a healthy dating relationship or a healthy marriage. But God will love and accept us no matter what. No matter how flawed or unlovable we think we are, or even if other people have made us feel unlovable. God loves us as we are. He loves us and wants us to choose him in all cases and all situations. All right, one more part, and I'll be quick on this one. Probably the best part about dating is when things are really working out. It's early in a relationship. Every moment spent together is awesome. You're staying up all night talking, trying to learn everything you can about this fascinating person. This is the time when Megan Miller mentioned a couple weeks ago that she would stay up to all hours of the night talking to Ryan, duping him into thinking that she was a night owl. But really it was because things are exciting and sleep is set. Lacey Hale, now Miller, did the same. This is the time in a relationship when the other person seems perfect. We are falling in love. These exciting feelings lead us to make commitments to this person we love. And in these moments, the commitments are easy and feel clearly right. This time doesn't last forever, though. Well, infatuation, awesome, and I don't want to diminish it at all, but eventually the Megan and Lacey's of the world return to their early bedtimes, and we've learned most of the important parts of one another, so the urgency of the conversation has decreased. I don't really have relationship or dating advice around this other than to make sure that you're still into the person and want things to keep moving forward once the facade of perfection has faded. You should know some of a person's faults and weaknesses before committing to them long term. But the point I do want to make is how similar this is to our relationship with God. We generally come to faith after an experience that is a high, a time when God's love and presence feels very real and close and obvious. We make a commitment at a time like this. Everything seems clear and easy, and the commitment seems clearly right. But things are not always this way. We read in the Psalms where David writes, my God, why have you abandoned me? Why are you so far away when I groan for help? Every day I call to you, my God, but you do not answer. Every night I lift my voice, but I find no relief. And the best perspective I've heard on this is from C.S. Lewis's book, The Screwtape Letters. And I'll abridge this quote a bit, but I think it makes sense in general. But just for context, this is a demon talking to another demon about God. So it's not a normal point of view. He says, you must have often wondered why the enemy, God, does not make more use of his power to be sensibly present to human souls in any degree he chooses at any moment. But you now see that the irresistible and the indisputable are the two weapons which the very nature of his scheme forbids him to use. Merely to override a human will, as his felt presence in any but the faintest degree would certainly do, would be for him useless. He cannot ravish, he can only woo. The creatures are to be one with him, but yet themselves. Merely to cancel them or assimilate them will not serve. Sooner or later he withdraws, if not in fact, at least from their conscious experience, all supports and incentives. He leaves the creature to stand up on its own legs, to carry out from the will alone duties which have lost all relish. He wants them to learn to walk and must therefore take away his hand. Our cause is never more in danger than when a human, no longer desiring, but still intending to do our enemy's will, looks round upon a universe from which every trace of him seems to have vanished, and asks why he has been forsaken, and he still obeys. I really like this perspective on the times when God feels distant. I think it also gives a good basis for when a relationship doesn't feel as easy as it used to. We have already chosen and committed during the highs, and during these lows is when we show our faithfulness. Another point out of this, the part about God wanting the creatures to be one with him, but yet themselves, that he cannot ravish, only woo. God's design is that we choose him. We talked earlier about him pursuing us, but as with any relationship, while there may be an initiator, for it to work, it becomes both parties pursuing the other. And to close out this morning, this is what I want to talk about. In light of what we've learned about God from looking at dating relationships, what should we actually do? First, like I just mentioned, we need to pursue God with our love. He pursued us by coming himself as Jesus to fix our broken relationship, and he continues to pursue us now. For the relationship to work, we need to do the same. In the book of James, it says, come close to God, and God will come close to you. Pursue God like you would pursue a person. Spend time with him. Read things that are written about him and by him. Speak to him through prayer. Listen to him by being silent. Block out time in your schedule to be with him, like dates, but don't call them dates because it's weird. Or do. I mean, being weird's fine. If you want to call them dates, if you're doing it, that's fine. Second, we need to continue to choose God in our lives. A few weeks ago, Megan Miller talked about the various idols in our lives, idols of productivity, entertainment, and comfort, and idols of a relationship. We talked about this a bit with having our significant other try to fulfill us in ways that only God can. Every day, we need to choose God to be the center of our lives over the other things, these idols that compete for that spot. Does how we spend our time, our energy, and our resources reflect God being our priority? Do we prioritize the things that God values or things that represent these idols? All of the passages in the Bible about God being a jealous God are referring to these types of things. The people who are committed to him, who he has called his own, worshiping idols instead. We have said that we are his and that we are committed, but do our lives really reflect? Which leads into our third takeaway. Things with a dating relationship and with God will not always be easy. For whatever reason, we go through highs and lows in our lives. We go through times when God feels very close and very real, and we go through times when he feels distant. Or as David wrote, like God has abandoned us. These are times when we can grow and show him our faithfulness. It is these times when we show that we believe his way is right and good to the core of our beings. Not for the good things or the blessings or the good feelings, but just because it is good and it is right. And because he is good and he is right. And as I close out this morning, talking about dating, I want to emphasize again that it is okay not to date. The Bible praises singleness. It's even okay if you really want to date and get married and it just isn't working. This is perfectly okay. It may not seem fair. It may not be fair. But know that God loves you and that you can still choose love in your life. I'll leave us with one more quote from Erwin McManus on this topic and the nature of our design by God. But you might wonder to yourself, what if I never find love? After all, you can't be held responsible if you've searched for love, risked in love, even fought for love, and yet have always found it unrequited. When love does not come to you, it breaks your heart. But when you do not give love away, it hardens your heart. One thing stronger than our need to be loved is our need to love, which again leads me to my conspiracy theory, that we are designed for love.